Alright, so normally you usually take years and years to learn how to do graphic design. I'm going to teach you in 20 minutes. So, less is more. So when it comes to graphic design and designing flyers and any other promotional material, it's best to make things as simple as possible. So this talk's just going to focus on making a poster or a flyer. You can apply these principles to most anything you print on paper, but since most people make flyers, I'm just going to focus on that. So when it comes to doing graphic design, you have to ask yourself, what are you trying to do? And when you design something, you're trying to go ahead and visually organize different elements to effectively communicate a certain idea, whether it be a protest sign, you're trying to say, I don't know, if you're pro-choice and graphically represent pro-choiceness, or if you want to create an event flyer with just saying what your event's about and when you get that, you want to go ahead and effectively organize all the elements so that people can easily read information and see which information is more important and get the information you want them to have. So if you notice here I said good graphic design shouldn't be noticed. What I mean by that is when you design something well, the information should just hit the person quickly and they'll get it quickly and they'll be done with it. Of course, if people are more attuned to graphic design, they're going to see good graphic design. Anyway. So I'm just going to focus on simple black and white flyers and posters, since we're students who don't really have that much money to pay for color copies, except Joel, who manages to get people to pay for color copies for him. So yeah, the key to a good graphic, good flyer poster is to organize the elements and pose them well. And the basic elements you manipulate are the letters, or word blocks, which are paragraphs, sentences, or like taglines, or subtitles, and then illustration and images. So before you even begin, you should ask yourself a few important questions. What are you trying to say? And the most basic answer to that is having just a list of all the text you want to put on the flyer. So of course, if it's an event, date and time, and location, always put that. So many times I've seen people send out an email or do a flyer where they forget, they put like, it's Sunday at 12 p.m. and that's it. They don't tell you where it is, which is terrible. It totally renders the flyer useless. And then there's also, what sort of feeling do you want to give with that flyer? If you're doing a talk, oh shoot, okay, never mind. If you're giving it, for example, I forgot to put a picture of this, but if you're giving a talk on the historicity of Jesus, you want to go ahead and put an image with it, especially or with any full flyer, you want to give an image, because people remember images better than text or specific things. And if you want them to quickly get what your flyer is about, you want to put an effective image. For example, when we had Dan Barker come 3 years ago to give a talk on the historicity of Jesus, I made a really quick graphic of Jesus being crucified with a question mark. And that, people thought that was a good idea, and apparently it worked well because people really recognized it quickly. Now another thing you want to ask yourself is, where is this flyer going to be displayed? Is it going to be displayed someplace where people are going to see it from afar, or someplace up close? If it's from afar, you want to go ahead and make the text and images bigger. If it's from close up, like maybe on a bulletin board or something like that, in a hallway, you want to make things smaller and maybe put more explanatory text about what the event's about. And then there are the time constraints. Now this applies more to people who are really into graphic design. If you're designing something, don't take hours to design a flyer, just maybe take half an hour, 45 minutes to put everything together, because it's not really worth it to make it super perfect. And when you do design something, it never hurts to make a little sketch so you get an idea what it's going to look like. Now, the elements of the poster. So first we start with letters. Now, are you laughing at the Comic Sans thing? Yeah. So fonts are typefaces are the basic unit of graphic design, I like to say. There are tons of fonts you can choose from, but there are only a few that work really well in most situations, and you want to focus on using just those. There are a lot of goofy fonts. Like there's Joker Man, which looks ridiculous. Never use fonts like that. Especially don't use Comic Sans. That's a little graphic designer typography joke. It's really an ugly font, I think. realized Microsoft fonts generally suck. So
Okay. Is it acceptable?
I say Calibri.
I
I don't know what the stress is, but yeah, Calibri's an okay font. Just you want your fonts to be simple and clean. And here's a list of safe fonts. Helvetica really is probably the safe. It's probably the most neutral, safe font, and you can really see it everywhere. I think that maximum capacity sign's even in Helvetica. I mean, it's everywhere. That's why. And like Century Gothic's the font I used in my previous slideshow. So yeah, these are a few basic fonts. And there are two main types of fonts. Yeah, just two. There's serif and sans serif. Serif fonts like Times New Roman and Georgia have little features called serif. Yeah. Thank you. A little serifs that come off the ends of the stroke, and then sans serifs are just basic strokes, more geometrical. As you can see here, the serifs. Now, serifs are better for large blocks of text that are going to be read a lot more. People have actually done research on the fonts, and apparently it's easier to read serif fonts more because the little ticks and strokes help you see the shape of the letter better. And so these are best for smaller blocks of text, paragraphs, and whatnot. If you want to do big signs, big posters, using sans serif is best. And these fonts give a more neutral, as I said, IKEA feel. Like Swedish design, it gives you that feeling like it's cool and like svelte kind of. Okay, you might not get that feeling from fonts, but I've worked with fonts a lot. Well, I'm not the one person that
love your fonts.
Love it. Okay. Now the next unit is a word block. So we're just going to focus on paragraphs really. There are 4 ways to format a paragraph. There's a flush left, flush right, centered, and justified. With flush left is the safest, least boring way to show text, and the reason why is when we read, our eyes like to be able to quickly go to the next line and see what next we're supposed to read. When you have lines of text flush left, the lines are always in the same location, so you can quickly read it better. Flush right is okay to use once in a while, but I suggest you don't use it ever. Centered is the safest way to show text, but it gets boring at times. In general, most basic poster design is when you just center all the elements, the title, the subtitle, everything, and you just down the middle. And that usually, most of the time, will provide you with a really simple, good poster design. And then there's justified, which is the most difficult way to format, because rarely do you get the precise number of words to fit nicely line by line in a paragraph. Sometimes you don't get enough words in a sentence and you have huge spaces in between words, and that's just ugly. You don't do that. Now, imagery. You really should always include some sort of image that is related to your talk or whatever the message is of your poster. Yeah, Raptor Jesus. So, if you're doing a talk on anatomy, just get a copy of Gray's Anatomy, scan a picture, bam, you're done. Or if you're doing a talk on animal diversity, if you have something with a lot of animals, you can show a picture there. If you're doing a talk on Jesus and raptors, now these images really don't have to be complex. Again, less is more. Just make it simple. If you put too much information, too much imagery, if the images clash with the text or too close to the text, if the images are too big, that'll just make your poster less easy to read. And that is not good. So hierarchy and composition are really important to keep in mind when you design a poster. You want to make sure your information, as I mentioned earlier in the previous talk, H1 tags show what's more important in like a post and whatnot. You can use various ways to show certain chunks of information are more important. For example, when you do titles, obvious ways to make the title huge. Or you can bold things, or you can make it italicized. If you do color, you can change the color, have contrast. There's all sorts of visual things you can do, but the most basic thing is just bigger, bolder, or italicized. So the more important bit of information, you want it to be more prominent. So when it comes to titles and dates and times, I like to make those bold, because people can see those first and they'll know whether or not they want to go to the event faster, if you can make it at all. And then there's composition, which we're going to talk about in a bit. Okay, when it comes to composition, it's easier to read things if they're aligned according to a grid or a line, and I'll show you that in a second. So, posters. So this is a poster I actually made for an event that Bass did on Friday. I have no idea how that went, but as you can see, the basic parts are the title, the subtitle or tagline, the explanatory text, the date, time, location, a graphic, and your group info. You should always include your group info in everything you do. Obvious, I know, but sometimes I've seen people forget to do that, and it's really annoying. And let's see, so I'm going to go into, so all these are pretty much the same poster, but I've done it in different ways, so you can see the various ways you can format something. So this talk we had last Friday was by a UCLA anthropology professor. He was going to discuss how humans are unique or not unique, and the debate among scientists with that. And when I first created it, I thought of just this really basic way of just making the title huge, tagline the next biggest thing, and then the explanatory text is smaller, and the date and time is rather big below it, and then the group info. As you can see here, let's see. Okay. Does this work? Okay, good, it works. So as I mentioned earlier, when you compose something, you want everything to be aligned well. And here, these two are aligned, and this is just flush with the margin of the flyer, which brings me to another important point. Always have a margin in anything you do, because these things might be stapled, these things may be slated to books or whatnot, and you always want to have a margin to give people that extra space so that your text is not affected in any way by anything around it. Let's see, and okay, as you can see here, this is centered, the explanatory text is centered, everything is centered except this. Another way to compose things to show contrast between things is to align them with different elements. I really suggest you don't do that often, but in this case, I didn't center the battery bag. No, it's here. I didn't center this because I wanted to have more impact. This way, by making it huge and not aligning everything. What? Okay, wait a second. Oh, the picture's much better. Wow. Ah, I failed. Okay, so this is just a basic poster I made initially. And then I realized, well, I can spice it up a bit and put an image in the background of skeletons, which are always cool. Skeletons are always in. And so the skeletons relate to the topic because it's anthropology and it's about humans, and skeletons, when it comes to animals a lot, if you're taking an anthropology class, they always discuss different skulls and whatnot. So I thought, hey, skeletons work well. So I chose skeletons. So this is pretty much the exact same poster, except I shrunk this text here because actually when you visually look at it, this takes up, it's not that too cluttered, it doesn't take up that much space, but when you look here with the image in the background, I shrunk it. I shrunk this text so that it would appear, it wouldn't clash more with the background image. Now, when I saw this, I thought this was pretty good, but then I thought of another poster I could do quickly, which was this, which the graphic is much clearer now, and people can see this better. People can see the graphic from afar better, which would probably catch their eye more and make them want to see what the poster is about. Because again, skeletons are cool, and everyone likes skeletons. And it's again, it's everything's centered, and it's just a really safe design to just center everything. So I chose to make the image huge because that was just, it catches your eye more. And again, the hierarchy of information, title's the biggest, the date and time's the next biggest thing, everything's center aligned, and you have a little subline there. Okay. Another thing, so now that poster was kind of boring and I wanted to spice it up a bit more, so I went ahead and I thought real long and hard and I thought of this. And it's always good to include a little joke in your posters, which is another thing when it comes to graphic design. Even though you have the information in the put into the poster, you might want to inject your own little bit of humor into it to make it more interesting. Visually adding elements is one way to spice things up, but adding some funny text or some catchy line always helps as well. And down here, actually, I did a flush right because this one was flush left, this one's flush right, and they're both up against a straight line. which is okay to do, especially because the date and time here is just separate chunks of information. If this was a sentence describing something, it would have never done it flush right. And then another version like this. I decided this time to make the date and time huge. And again, you have the background image. And I made this a bit bigger too. As you can see here, this one has a more airy feel than this one, especially because it has all the huge title text. Yeah, so when it comes to, let's see. So this one's just a really basic center-aligned one. And again, the title's huge. I can't stress enough, make the title big. You really want to make the hierarchy clear for people to see. Okay, now when it comes to actually going ahead and making things, there are a lot of tools you can use. The most basic tool which everyone has is Microsoft Word. Now, I really don't like Word because it's really clunky, but if you go ahead and use text boxes, you can write text in boxes and move them around easily and align things quickly. That's probably the best way to go about designing things. However, if you just do a center-aligned poster, you can very easily just center all your text and just put all the information in and be done with it. So I suggest you do use Word because everyone has that. But if you want to get more advanced, you want to go ahead and use Photoshop, which I'm sure all of you have heard about. The next best thing is actually Adobe InDesign, which is a graphic designer that graphic designers professionals use. That provides you the most creative freedom, but since I know most of you aren't really that into graphic design, just use Word and center everything. Yeah?
How do you make a flyer on Photoshop?
Oh, you just open a file, set the file dimensions, set your margins, and
Oh,
then
just like 10 by 11 or 8 by
8.5 by 11, and then you go ahead and use the text tool to type things, and then you're going to have the text boxes.
Okay.
So now, if you want more information on graphic design, there are a lot of great websites, but I suggest you get a book first. And this book here is the best intro text to graphic design I've seen. This Typography Essentials is a really good book as well, but it just has about 125 graphic design principles you can apply to whatever you do. And there are also a ton of websites. There's Thinking with Type, which is the book that goes with the website that goes with Thinking with Type. Because I like typography.com, the grid system, which will show you more about grids and aligning elements on your page to make it more effective. And then if you ever want inspiration, there's imagespark.com, which is an amazing site. People upload tons of images every day, posters, artwork, whatnot, and you can do searches on that. And then there's just Flickr. If you Google posters on Flickr, you'll get a ton of reference material. That's it. Any questions? Joel?
Where did that picture come from?
Which picture?
Oh, that's up there now.
Oh, I was trying to make a silhouette of my face, and then that happened. I'm serious, like I just. Wait, there's something. Yeah.
I've heard that you're supposed to use only 3 or 4 font sizes. I noticed
Yeah,
you had a lot. You had the same font, but a lot more sizes.
That is true. You could do that, but rules are meant to be broken, especially with graphic design. There are all these rules of thumb which work most of the time, but I found that 3 type rule doesn't really apply really much to posters. I mean, again, keep it simple. Use 3 sizes, that's a good idea, but if you want to, you can use a bit more. But
maybe it's more for beginners who like to use 5 different kinds of
exactly.
fonts.
Don't go crazy with these crazy fonts, just simple fonts. And don't make too many sizes. Your title's the biggest, the date and time the next largest size, everything else is the 3rd largest size.
I think what it says with the photography thing is if the speaker is a big name, the rich Dorman speaking, have him
That
in
is a
the
good, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so if there's something, again, the hierarchy of information, if there's something more important, you make that bigger than the title.
What was the other one for inspiration? Not Flickr, but image?
IMG Spark, ImageSpark.
I don't know anything about anything, so I use PowerPoint to make slides instead of Word because it's easier to move stuff.
Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. When we first designed the Bass logo, actually, it wasn't me, but the other guy was using PowerPoint. To be honest, I haven't really used PowerPoint to do that, but if it works for you, use it. Again, if it works for you, just go ahead and use it. You don't have to follow what I'm saying.
Word.
Yeah. That's true. So yeah, I haven't really thought of PowerPoint as a very use it for that sort of. Yeah, use PowerPoint actually. That's a really good idea.
If you were going to design your group's logo again, would you suggest that one?
Oh, okay. There's a difference between typography and logo type. They're both related, but when you do typography, you're just dealing with blocks of text and whatnot in images. When it comes to logo type, that delves into a mixture of illustration and typography. So there's this website called LogoPond, I believe, and they have
What?
LogoPond. I think that's the name. I could look it up quickly. But when it comes to designing the logo, this is a vast logo actually.
Do you think it's unfortunate the A is the biggest letter there?
No, it just happened when we put it together. That happened. It was really funny when we were thinking of the logo. We're like, we're bass, the fish, and then it came together really nicely. But okay, so when it is logopond.com. So again, when it comes to graphic design, don't be afraid of copying people. It's a great way to learn. So if you want to look at posters and see a great design you like, emulate it and use the elements from it. There's nothing wrong with it. Also, when it comes to logos as well, if you see a good idea, use it. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't completely steal the logo completely. That's wrong. Any other questions?
One comment I want to make just really quickly, because it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. A lot